Dr. Adele Diamond, our guest. She's a professor of psychiatry. She works out of the Brain Behavior Lab, yes, at UBC. Executive functions you study, and what's happening up here in our prefrontal cortex that's causing us to
not have such
find self-control and discipline and stick-to-itiveness.
Well, executive functions are kind of like the canary in the coal mine. They're the first reaction system when anything goes wrong in your life. So if you're sad or you're stressed, executive functions go out the window. If you're lonely or feel socially isolated, executive functions suffer. If you're sleep deprived, if you're distracted, if you're not physically fit, executive functions are the first ones to be hit and the hardest. So a lot of times we think a child has an executive function disorder like ADHD, when really the child is sleep deprived or stressed. Maybe there's stress in the home, and it looks like the child has a disorder, but the child doesn't. The child just isn't able to show good executive functions because other things are making prefrontal cortex so it doesn't work properly.
What does that have to do with being loved, feeling safe? I'm thinking about some of Dr. Rick's patients whose mother died, father died, they're physically impaired.
Yeah. If you want good executive functions, if you want children to succeed in school, they need to feel loved, they need to feel safe, they need to feel they need to feel heard, they need to feel included, they need to feel like they're part of something, and they need to be physically fit. Then they'll shine in school.
That makes sense to me, and I know that I haven't been in a school for a while, but I know some of the gym programs have been cut back, some of the music programs cut back. When I went to school in the olden days, like we had full orchestra, every kid played an instrument, almost every kid played an instrument, or could play an instrument if that's what you wanted to do. And we had to go to gym, and we had to take ballroom dancing, you know, just had to learn how to foxtrot, didn't we?
It's a shame because it seems like it makes logical sense that if you want to improve academic outcomes, spend more time on academic outcomes and squeeze out the other stuff. But it's exactly the wrong approach. What you need are the other things, because the unmet social needs, the unmet emotional needs, the unmet physical needs will work against doing well. So what seems logical isn't always right.
So you nourish the body, the spirit, the mind,
the emotions, the social, and then you get the children to shine in school. So you get better academic outcomes by spending less time on academic instruction and having orchestra, having dance, having art, having play. Children actually do better. We've shown that empirically.
I totally believe it, and I haven't seen the science, but it makes perfect sense to me. IQ, anything to do with how smart a child is,
actually,
how intelligent a child is, and how they function or don't function?
Actually,
that way?
Executive functions, discipline, account for more variation in final grades than does IQ. And executive functions are more important for school readiness than IQ. So IQ is overrated.
Well, we all went to school with extremely smart kids who were bored, caused a lot of trouble in class because they were bored or said they were bored, or they went on to rob banks. You know, I mean, they'll think of something to do to stimulate them if they're not stimulated, and you have a gifted child who's not stimulated or directed.
That's right. And the same thing for the kids who are having trouble. There's a study called the Coca-Cola study, because Coca-Cola funded it. And what they did was there were some 6th graders who were cutting up and getting in a lot of trouble, and they were terrible readers. So the school went to these children, and they said, we have a very important responsibility for you. This is a really important job. We want you to tutor the 1st graders in reading. They couldn't tutor the 2nd graders because their reading wasn't that much better, but their reading was better than the 1st graders. The kids took this on, and by the end of the school year, not only were the 1st graders reading better, but the 6th graders were reading better, and they weren't cutting up anymore.
See? It's if you have a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, the first 3 years, how important is that? Say the first 3 years, let's start there, of life.
It's important to have a good foundation, just like if you want to build a house. You need a solid foundation. And one of the reasons the early years are so important is because you develop an image of yourself and you develop expectations. And if you expect yourself to do well, you probably will. And if you don't expect yourself to do well, you won't. So it's very important that the children begin with having faith in themselves,
Sure.
believing in themselves. That's much more important than having specific skills like reading or math. It's more important to be curious, to want to learn, and to believe that I can learn. I'm going to be able to do this.
Absolutely. The power of the thought. Like Jackie Gleason once said, I think, if you think you're good, you're good. If you don't think you're good, you're not.
That's right. Exactly.
Like,
it's totally
pretty much.
right. It's totally right.
So self-esteem is in there, obviously, but other things like memory, holding information in the mind. In school, you remember kids in math, and they could do algebra, but they could not solve a problem. They could not do the problems in math.
That's right, because they couldn't hold enough in mind to be able to get the whole story. Same thing with children understanding what they're reading. If they can't hold it in mind, by the time they get to the end of the paragraph, they've forgotten what was earlier in the paragraph. I think we should bring back storytelling. It's wonderful to read with your child and have your child sit next to you. But I think it's also wonderful for you to have the book and sit opposite your child, like you're sitting opposite me. Have eye contact. Because now the child has to hold the information in mind. There are no visual supports. They have to work to concentrate. They have to work to remember what character's name is associated with what. And so you're exercising executive function.
See, if you grew up listening to the radio, listening to drama on the radio, One Man's Family, Fibber McGee and Molly, you had to make pictures. You heard a newscast, you had to see what was happening. Now with the impact of television, high tech, high touch, all the gadgets, the iPads.
That's right.
What will change, do you think, in the mind?
Well, we don't know yet, but usually technology now assumes a short attention span. So it keeps changing, keeps grabbing your attention. Things keep happening. So you don't learn to sustain your attention because you're never asked to do that. So I think it's not that good for things like sustained attention, things like discipline, things like inhibition.
So one of the projects for a child might be go in and work with your sister and come out and perform a play or perform a song.
Sure, that would be great.
Tap your inner creativity.
Right, or the kids in the neighborhood get together and play. And you guys figure out the rules. You know, you work it out between you and go play some game. We used to play games, right? You played stickball, you played soccer, and somehow we worked it out without the adults telling us what to do.
Sure, and you played soccer. Operative word, you played soccer. You didn't stand in line in the rain and do soccer drills. Not that they didn't want us to eventually be good soccer players, but it wasn't so intense.
That's right.
You know, get out, have fun, flood the backyard.
That's right. Just have fun. Don't worry about it.
Right.
You know, it's okay if you make a mistake. It's not the end of the world.
I mean, we're not trying to go back to the future, and I know you're not, but it's so important to nourish body, mind, and soul.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have a conference every other year called the Brain Development and Learning Conference. The next one will be July 24th to 28th, 2013. And it's for the general community. We bring in experts on body, mind, trauma, stress, making schools work, etc. And it's for everybody in the community. And if you just Google that, you'll be able to get more information on it.
Great. So the Dalai Lama Center for Peace and Education is supporting you in your lecture on Thursday.
Yes.
Which is at Van City Theater. Yes. And it's about nourishing the body, spirit, and mind.
Yes.
For adults or for kids.
Yes. Yes.
How great. It's so fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You did your university proud. That Harvard PhD seems to have served you well. Dr. Adele Diamond.